All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast powered by our friends over at X2 Power. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Agbert, and joined with me is the captain, Mr. Andy Full. What's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. I just want to comment that you are wearing the old X2 hat, and I got this cool patch one on.
I think I got the old patch one or that one you had. I think maybe 2 weeks after this one. I want to wear that one still. I literally like my problem is I sweat when I'm out so much,
Oh,
like I'm out
this
fishing,
hat
and
is
I ruin hats
disgusting.
all the time.
It's absolutely like vile, gross with sweat, but I like it. It's probably the best like fitting hat I have at the moment. So I wear it all the time. It's a good one.
Well, dude, and that's part of my problem too. Is like I'll still wear them if they're nasty. Like I have a hummingbird hat that I wore all last 2 seasons because I was having good luck. Like I was doing well in derbs, and I was always wearing that hummingbird hat. So I'm superstitious like that. I wear the same hat if I have like good times on the water.
Same
And
socks too.
no, I don't wear socks when I'm
Oh,
fishing
that's
unless it's
fair.
like super
That's fair.
cold. But I don't care. No, dude, socks. If it's cold out, I'm wearing my Blackfish waterproof socks. But if not, I'm going straight flip flops. Like there's people bundled up in layers. In Florida. Saturday morning, I had 3 layers on. In all honesty, it was actually pretty chilly. But I still had flip flops on because I'm in Florida. It's illegal to not wear flip flops in Florida. But like, but dude, like I had this hummingbird hat, and dude, it was so gross. I tried to put it on last week for the derb, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I got to make new luck. I can't wear this hat anymore. It's so nasty.
You shouldn't,
And
in
so I
all
put my X2
retrospect.
hat on and had a bad day one. I still caught a big one, so I still think there's some juju in it. You know what I'm saying? And I ran into big ones day two. We'll have a full breakdown later this week on Friday's episode of how my tournament went on the Harris chain. But I think there's some juju in the X2 hat. We just got to get built up. You know, it's not full fledged when you wear it right away.
This is
I'm
mine
way
right
too
here, man.
superstitious.
I'm pretty sure the top of this hat, like that's the color this hat is supposed to be, and it's like green and gray from sweat just building up on it, like 90-degree days on Lake Erie with no wind. So yeah, it's I'm all for it though. Sweaty hats are the best hats. Oh, the Sabres, I think I looked right before we got on, like not to change subject. They're down 4-0 to the Leafs on 9 shots.
Ooh,
So yeah,
oh
it
boy,
was a
no.
pretty bad start.
Sounds like Sabres issue of goaltending per usual. But
Yeah.
yeah, I saw you put this up earlier. I was mid rant. But our boy Double Digit Angler, who just started a podcast as well, you guys should check it out. Said my raccoon eyes are real. They are. If you think this is bad, you see my flip flop tan line already. I'm actually pretty proud of it. By mid February, with my flip flop tan line the way it is, like I'm gonna be
On
rocking
point.
that New York, man. I got to keep it going. I'm gonna have to wear flip flops when I get home. That way I can keep it. Got to keep the good juju going for the year, man.
Hopefully, you're
You
not
know,
coming home this weekend. It could be quite the slippery drive.
I am this weekend. I am coming home this weekend.
Drive
So,
safe. There's
hey,
a bad ice
snow
storm
or not,
coming,
that's
so
fine.
yeah,
I'm wearing flip flops the whole way home.
love it.
Our guest tonight is no stranger to flip flops. He actually probably isn't too far from where I'm at right now. Mr. Keith Carson is joining us here in a minute. We're gonna bring him on here in a second, talking about how to find some bigger bass in the springtime because now's the time to catch a fish of a lifetime. But really fast, Andy, for folks that may have missed this past weekend's Lure Lab episode, quickly give the folks a synopsis of that.
Lure Lab, great episode. Alex Rudd joined us, and if you follow Alex Rudd's YouTube, you'll see a common denominator in like all of his videos as of late, and he's been just catching a ton of fish on the Money Badger. So I figured I would bring him on, and we would chat about the Berkeley Money Badger. It's about 40 minutes long, so it's a longer one on the spectrum for the Lure Lab, but there is a lot of knowledge dropped, his favorite colors, where to throw them, got into different sizes. So you want to tune in and listen to that one. YouTube too, there's some like videos of baits and stuff on YouTube. It was a fun episode. So thanks to Alex for coming on.
Oh, Rudd.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, our guest today is a Berkeley guy. I'm actually intrigued to talk to him about the Money Badger. That blaze color is legit. I'm excited to throw that more. I'm actually going to go throw it this weekend. I'm torn. We'll talk about it at the end of the episode, but I'm torn on what my plans to do this weekend are. But really fast, before we get Keith on here, I want to hype up a show for next week that I think. I'm sorry to all of our guests. I'm sorry to all of them. Keith, I know you're in the queue. I'm sorry, man. I love you.
I'm so
but
pumped for this one. It's such a good one.
The coolest show, and I think Keith will actually agree with us. The coolest show next Tuesday night live.
Will it be his first ever live
I
show?
believe this is. I was talking with Andrew Hayes of Tackle Talk podcast. I believe this might be the first ever live stream that he's done before. I could be wrong. He might have done Straycast. I'll have to double check. I'll have to text Pat. But we're having Hank Parker. Hank Parker's coming on live next Tuesday night, and I'm extremely excited. I was talking to Hank today on the phone, and he was pretty pumped up to come talk and share some stories with us about his time. I mean, he's still grinding. Like he's
a fishaholic, man.
So really fast, quick story. I promise we're gonna get Keith on here. I ran a media event for the new Berkeley jigs that released. I think it's 2 years ago now. And Hank was one of our pros for that media event. And of course, I was very nervous because I'm running the event and didn't want to be like Hank to think I'm some jabroni that didn't know what I was doing.
Little does he know.
Well, yeah, little did I know Hank would be out of all the guys. Like we had Shane LaHue, we had Joseph Webster there. Like out of all Adrian Navina, like all the guys that were there, he was the hardest one to get off the water. Like it was awesome. I'm like, this man is an inspiration. Like I hope when I'm his age, I'm still the guy getting yelled at for staying out way too dang long. So it was awesome. But you know, dude, without further ado, let's get him on here because I'm curious his take on this. But Mr. Keith Carson, what's going on, man?
Hey, man. So I'm gonna say Hank Parker is gonna be way better than I am.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Keith. Come on.
Yeah, that guy's a legend.
We always love you on this show, buddy. It's why it's like I think it's your fourth time.
I think so. Yeah, we're up there.
I think it's third.
Yeah, third. Yeah,
definitely one of our more frequent guests. But yeah, man, I'm sorry, but I think Hank's gonna take the cake on the coolest episode we've done so far.
I'm with you. I don't think he's been on Straycasts. I could be wrong, but I know because Pat's had like
Jimmy,
Rick Klein, Jimmy. He's had a lot of the old timers.
Roland.
I don't think Hank's been on there, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I can't say. Yeah. I'll have to fact check it, but knowing like the power like Panger has, Panger will probably get Hank on this week just to throw it at me.
Right.
But dude, how's it been, man? How's the offseason treating you? Let's catch up a little bit before we kick into today's topic.
1 year ago, he was on Straycast.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. Yeah.
Bastard.
Yeah. Man, everything's going good. I had an off season, had some downtime to get a new boat, get everything situated. New trolling motor, new batteries, everything's loaded up, good to go. I just finished up the first tournament of the year on Okeechobee. I finished 34th place. I had 15 pounds a day, and I was happy with that. I had a pretty difficult practice, and it's funny because looking at the weights from both MLF Invitationals and the Bassmaster Elite Series, the weights are just unreal. The size of the bags coming in, what Brian Cobb caught, what some of the guys in MLF Invitationals caught, it blew my mind. I didn't catch anything like that in practice or the tournament, but with the way the lake's fishing, there's only so much clear water because the lake's flooded. So all the guys are just kind of in one area, and obviously the fish are too. So, but everything's going good. I leave for Clark's Hill Thursday. Practice starts Friday. So I'm excited to get up there. I've won a tournament up there before, so it's been a while, but I'm excited to hit that lake.
Heck yeah, dude. I appreciate you helping me procrastinate some of my work on live for the invitationals. That was fun.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm a big time procrastinator too, so I feel you. Yeah.
Dude, this time of year is so bad for me, especially like if when we have like an MLF and a Bassmaster event going on at the same time. Like I hope my boss doesn't listen to this. I'm sorry. I don't get a lot of stuff done. I do my very best to get stuff done, but like it's
right.
It's so hard to
very best.
Yeah. No, there's so much to do. Like, the other day they had MLF and the Elites run. You got Toho and Okeechobee, or the Kissimmee chain and Okeechobee, let's say. And I'm just like, what do I do? What do I watch?
Yeah, which one?
And then I chose the Elites more just because Cox was fishing, and so I follow Cox, but I watch both for sure. So
Well, dude,
Yeah.
I will say I watched both. I tried to watch both that day, and I did catch Chris Lane's wild finish at the end, which was sick. Like almost as cool as his brothers. Like I don't know what it is with
Yeah.
those two brothers, but they like the dramatic finishes, which is great for the sport.
Right.
But one thing that's cool, we talk about Hank's coming on the show next Tuesday, but next Friday's episode is Chris Lane. So Chris Lane's coming on the show, talk about his event on the Kissimmee chain. So we have that to look forward to as well.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of fun. And I'll have to tease him a little bit because I posted the reel of him almost falling in the lake when he caught one of those fish. I think it was I can't remember which river it is on the Kissimmee chain, but he caught one like almost fell in the lake when he was trying to boat flip it. But yeah,
We've all done that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, you know what? First time I fell in, Cox and I were fishing together. We were like 13 and 14, and we were fishing schoolers on the St. Johns River. And they came up schooling, and I bombed a cast up there, 1-8 it right away. And I stepped back to set the hook. And right as I stepped back, he opened the rod locker to pull another rod out. I step in the rod locker, and I just flipped over the side so fast. I come up, and I'm like missing my hat and glasses, everything. It was pretty funny. And I still caught the fish, too.
I was going to ask. Did you catch the fish?
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
That reminds me of like that Zona Iconelli episode where Iconelli sucked the hook and like stepped backwards and fell off the side of the boat. Like
Snaps half his rod.
yeah.
Have you guys seen that? Have you guys seen that trend lately on social where
The dumb ways to die one?
Yes,
Yeah.
I posted that with that video of the dumb ways to die. That was good.
I'm telling you, you still gotta make the one where we fished that classic tournament and you tripped over my pliers and almost nosedived off the back of my boat.
Yeah, your motor saved me. I went head first into Andy's motor when I tripped over. Hit the Triton. His Triton and had the pliers that were like the tools you could put flush with the boat deck.
Oh, it's terrible.
So we were like flipping docks, and I was going to the back of the boat to go like get an angle, and I didn't see the pliers. So my foot hits the pliers, and I go flying to the back deck, and my head goes right into his motor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you can hear me. I'm like, dude, thank God for your motor. Otherwise, I was going in the lake, and it was like late October. It was cold.
Yeah,
That was good.
you're gonna need a helmet. Start fishing with a helmet, Yeah.
I'm like that. I'm like the dude from oh god, what's the baseball movie with the three old dudes? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Something Field of Dreams.
No,
Or,
Is it the rookie? Is that it? The rookie?
Benchwarmers.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's the one dude that they had to duct tape his hands, and he had to wear a bike helmet when he was up to bat. That's me when I'm fishing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, dude, let's hop into it, man. This time of year, I mean, even for us Northerners, at least in the Northeast anyway, we're starting to get our lakes are opening up. People are starting to catch bass. Things are starting to come to life. Where like down here, I mean, you guys are already have had a first wave of spawners and things are popping. This is the time of year, beyond like the fall time for some specific regions that you can catch a true giant. Like it's the best time of year to catch a mega giant. And it seems like this time of year you're catching a lot of fish. So it seems like to some it may be easy to go out and catch a big one, but in reality, you can go out and catch a lot of fish this time of year. It's a great time to catch numbers, but it can be pretty difficult to go catch that true giant. So really just trying to dial down where to find these fish, how to find them, what some of the telltale signs should be to, when you're on small ones, how do you readjust to go find bigger fish? But, let's back it up and start from like, you're going out to the lake this time of year, and you're not going out to just catch numbers. You're going out to hunt for a big one.
Yeah.
What are some of the first things you're going to do, even maybe before you even put the boat in the water?
Well, so one of the first things I would do before I'd even put the boat in the water is look at what the temperatures are. So, well, let's start a few days before. So like if I know I'm going to go practice for a tournament, let's say, I'm going to be watching the weather far prior to the first day of practice, like 7-10 days prior. And I'm going to watch the highs, and especially I'm going to watch the lows, because now this time of year, fish are spawning. They're either pre-spawn, or spawn, and some even post-spawn. And so you're going to watch the weather, and the lows is the real big number. So like you can have days where it's like 78 or something. You think, oh, it's warming up. The fish are going to start spawning. But if your low's 48, Well, the water's really not going to warm that much. You want your lows to be like 60 and above. And that's where that's really going to start to turn to where the fish will start to hit the bank. So now let's say that we've had some warm weather, we're on a warming trend. When I put that boat in the water, one of the first things I'm going to do is just actually look for beds. Just start looking, find some clean water. If I'm familiar with the body of water, I'm going to go to areas that I've seen beds in the past, and I'm going to start looking for fish on beds and visually seeing them. And there's times, like a lot of times fish will go up and make beds and then they won't sit on them. So if you just see beds, you'll know that they're coming. And and then if you can see the fish, that's the ideal time to catch the biggest fish of your life, is to actually sight fish. Because you go through an area, you see fish on the beds, you get to pick out what size fish you want to catch. You can say, oh, that one's a 2, that one's a 7, oh, that looks like a 12 there, let's fish for that one.
Window shopping.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do have a question. What would you say is the magic water temp for you to start seeing fish on beds?
For me, it's about 57 degrees. A lot of people think it should be warmer. They start spawning real cold. I've caught fish off the beds when the water was 56 on Lake Toho. But the important key is that it's on a warming trend. Typically, so the best number I'd say is about 64 to 67 is the ideal temperature, but it can be below 60 as long as it's warming. You'll get those fish that really want to get their eggs out ahead of the rest of the bunch, or you'll get just aggressive fish that spawn early. You'll get some weird fish, and you do see that, and it does happen. But that mid 60 range is ideal.
Now I'd have a follow-up question. I'm a big person on like moon phase. So do you feel like the moon phase has a lot to do with it too, is on that warming trend?
Yeah. So the moon phase does have a lot to do with it, but the warming trend would trump a moon. So like, let's say we have a full moon, but the weather's really cold. It doesn't matter. They're not going to spawn. Even though the moon is ideal and perfect, they're just not going to do it. It's too cold. But let's say you have the worst moon, like no moon, and we're on a great warming trend and every day's in the 80s and the lows aren't very low. They're going to spawn regardless of what that moon's doing. And it may not be as good as if it were to align with a full moon or around a full moon, but they're still going to spawn because, those females, they get their eggs in their belly, and their bellies are expanding and they just want to push them out. Like, they don't care what the moon is. They're like, just get these things out of me. They're uncomfortable, so
Get out of
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. So it's something like that.
That's a really good question, Andy, because that's one, honestly, there was many times where even Keith, I was sitting there, like when I was texting you to try to schedule a show while I was sitting out there graphing, I was sitting there because I was looking at temperatures and I'm seeing like 63, and I saw a cold front coming Saturday. I'm like, what is like ideal? Like for some reason, whatever in my mind, I always think like I need to look for at least like 68, 69, 70 for spawn. Yeah. That's good to know. I mean, that's something right there. I learned a lot. Like I probably missed out on a lot of fish that were up shallow spawning this past week.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you did see one that was like 8 or so, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned. So, I mean, and I don't know, how long did you look for beds?
Maybe
when you're in Harris?
45 minutes, if any.
Oh, what?
Oh, I mean, during the tournament, in practice, I looked the thing that I was like, so what I ended up finding out was, so we have a 21-day window for information. I don't really like information anyways, because it makes me make decisions that I wouldn't make. And it just kind of like doesn't allow me to learn correctly in my mind. But there are some things I think I like to get help on in regards to like something like that, like water temperature. But like for me, I was just sitting there and I was like, there's a cold front that came in on Saturday. And I was like, I don't know what exactly it's going to do to Florida fish, but all rumblings I've heard from other anglers, like, it's going to affect the shallow fish, it's going to do this and that. And I knew that there's still more waves that have yet to come because I caught pre-spawners in practice. So I figured if I could find, and I assumed because I saw 70 degrees in some areas, that there were some that were probably done because I'd seen you guys had a full moon a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
If I could find areas, because how I like to fish offshore, if I could find areas that had pre-spawners coming and staging, and then post spawners coming out, that I have fish
Right.
coming both ways. But I found stuff like that, so I didn't spend too much time trying to fish spawners. For one, the cold front on Saturday scared me a little bit, but then two, a lot of kayak anglers don't really spend too much time offshore, where I figured all the canals would be packed, which they
Right.
weren't. I didn't see a single other person in the canals,
Yeah.
and guy that was second place, and I think the guy that was in third, I don't think he was in the canal. There's a lot of the top 10 were in canals catching fish, which, looking back on, those big bites I told you about offline came in those canals. So it's like,
Right.
looking back on it, I probably should have spent more time and been like, stop being so hard headed. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. I think it's good to know though. But I've heard, and I'm curious your take on that the colder the temperatures, the bigger fish are more apt to spawn earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
fact check that.
Yeah. So, so an example I can give. So, I think it was, I want to say it was like January 7th or February 7th, 2010. It was like one of the coldest days in Florida that I remember. It was like 7 degrees. Our high was 20. Which I know that's like normal for you guys right now up there, but but for here,
when it's like that,
yeah,
like shut down Florida.
Right. Yeah. It's like everything, schools are closed, stuff, even though there's no snow. No, I'm just kidding. But no, so it was really cold for a long time, and there was nothing spawning. And then it warmed up, and we had like 380-degree days, and it was the absolute best spawn I had ever seen in my life, and still is to this day. And Cox and I went out fun fishing on the St. Johns River, and our 5 biggest, the first day we went out all sight fishing, was about 45 pounds, 45, 48. And then day 2 we went out, and our 5 biggest went 42 pounds. And it was so good, we told his brother to come, who doesn't even fish. And his brother caught like a 12, a 9, and a 6 on one bed. There was the fish were trying to spawn so hard that there was multiple females per male, and like they were fighting over males. Like, it's things you don't normally see. But that extreme cold, like that year also, I remember it got so cold that we had massive snook fish kills, like on the coast, because the water got so cold they didn't make it. But it made the spawn excellent that year for bass. So
that's super intriguing. So it's like, on the first signs of spawn, do you think those are the times where, not like in the heat of it, I mean, you can catch big ones in the heat, but like the first telltale signs that the spawn is happening is like your chance to catch the biggest one in the lake?
Not exactly, but yes, yeah, you're right. It is. It's your best percentage of catching the biggest one in the lake at that time. If you could time that up, and then just get out there and look for as many big ones as you can, and Florida's a funny place. It's different than anywhere else in the nation when it comes to pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. So typically in other areas of the nation, your pre-spawn fish are going to be deeper. They're going to be, they're going to be on like brush in front of, say, a spawning flat or a creek. Mm-hmm. They're going to be on items like that, things like that.
Yeah, creek mouths.
And now in Florida, our pre-spawn fish are like 20 feet from a bed, like 20 feet from a spawning area. So let's say, for example, you're on Lake Harris, on the Harris chain, and the fish are spawning in a creek. You're going to have pre-spawners that are just sitting in the creek, like working their way back into the creek to where they're going to spawn. And so, it's totally different than it's also more difficult to actually target pre-spawners in Florida because they're just like all mixed, but yeah, I mean, you just fish spawning areas and you'll catch everything here in Florida,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously Florida is its own beast. And it's one that, like, even you said, like, it's hard to even target pre-spawners. But like take a non-Florida lake out of the picture and take a let's just call it a lake that's you have a flat, and the flat that joins up to a creek. There's a secondary point, and then a little bit of it opens up in the back where a super shallow flat in the back of this creek. I mean, where, once you start seeing signs temperature wise, right? You talked about, the warmer the nighttime temps, the warmer trend, the warming trend you find, that's the time to go look for these fish that are spawning. What is the first place you're going to go check?
So, I mean, if it's the first warming trend of the year, the first place would be in the back of the creek. And then as it warms up, you're going to start moving out towards the secondary point and towards the point. And then as time goes on, and let's say, we're weeks into a spawn from the first spawn, they're going to be on the main lake. They're going to be as Maine gets. And that is actually sometimes when the best spawn happens. On non-Florida lakes. And the reason is because, it takes time for those offshore fish way out in the middle to actually hit the bank. Those are some of the last spawners, but that's also where you have some of the biggest schools of fish is out there on that main lake. So a lot of times, you can have big waves move up late in the spawn, and those are those fish that, come from way offshore and stuff. So,
right.
Yeah, that can be a lot of fun.
Do you find that it's easier, because you mentioned starting way back in the creek, like to the very back? Do you think it's easier to, like, say this time of year when you go to a brand new body of water, to like that's where you're going to start? Just go as far back as you can and work your way out, and that'll give you a telltale signs of what those fish are doing?
Yeah, definitely. Go to the back, start there. Look for beds, fish as much as you can. Fish things on the way in and out, docks, points, bushes, whatever's there, and you just keep going, keep plugging along, and the lake. I have this saying where like the lake just kind of reveals itself to you if you just keep going, keep casting, and you'll get some clues, and then you can clue in a bit and expand from there.
That is one of the things I think I learned last week was in New York and some other lakes. I found that you can spend there's an advantage to using your electronics most of the practice to let the fish show you, and you can always just figure out how to catch them in the tournament pretty easy if you can find like schools of them and such.
Right.
Whereas I like, especially in New York. Like in New York, if there's schools of fish, you can see them pretty damn easy.
Yeah.
Where I've learned in Florida, I think I should have spent a lot more time casting than I did looking at my graph.
Right. Well, Florida is like, it's totally different. You got all the grass and stuff. So it's not like, New York where, you're looking at, say, rocks or something, and then you can see the fish swimming all around. Like Florida, They just go right in the grass. And you're looking, you're like, oh, there's nothing there. But really, you just got to throw that trap in there and rip it out, and they'll come flying out after it.
We have a comment here from Anthony Geis saying, holy shit, is that the brawny man in real life? Wait for the party here. Billy needs to get on this weird game.
I say this every week, but Anthony, he has like the greatest comments.
Oh, always. I mean, it's not even just our show. He does it to like Ike Live and everything too. He's known there for the comments. He told me that somebody called. So I was on the Ike Live show back in October after the charity event, and someone said that I was a stick, like trying to say, good fisherman type of deal. And he goes, a stick? He goes, I think he said that's like goddamn log or something like that. Like, I have big old under thighs. So I can't remember what he said, but it was something really funny. But, yeah.
That's great.
So kind of getting back to the conversation. So you start back in a creek, you start finding them where you want to when you think they're pre-spawn. Some of them are on beds. You kind of have them in all stages, but you're not finding big ones on bed. And the pre-spawners you're running into, say you're only running into males. What kind of adjustments would you try and make to try to catch a bigger caliber of fish, especially when you know that the lake is capable of much bigger fish than what you're catching?
Yeah. So if that was the scenario, I would look at what part of the lake I'm in, and then I would move to a different part of the lake based on the water temperature. Like, so, and part of the way that you do that is like, if you're on a body of water, many bodies of water, they have like a river system that feeds into the lake that could go to, say, a reservoir, like a dam, that kind of deal. You're going to have your warmer water closest to the dam, and it's going to be coldest up the river. And so, let's say I'm running into that situation and I want to find warmer water where the fish are going to be more pre-spawn. I'm going to get closer to the dam, and that'll help me clue in on like, okay, I was just in the wrong part of the lake. And then, I find the type of fish that I want to catch, whether it be pre-spawn or spawn or whatever the weather would allow me to do. And then I'm going to target those fish in that particular part of the lake that suits my fishing style the best. And that's kind of how I'd go after that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's going to be, and this is the part that I learned is so frustrating about Florida, is that one day they're all just 2-pounders, pound and a half, and you can do the exact same thing. Nothing different changes. You go back to that area and it's all 5-pounders.
Yeah. Not even one day. Sometimes it's hours. Like when I was fishing Okeechobee, it was like that. Like, I was fishing moonshine, fishing around a bunch of other boats, and we'd pass each other. We're like, hey, you got any? Like, no, 8 pounds. I got 8, this and that. And then in the last hour, the place would just come alive. We were all catching 5-pounders. And it was unreal. And we would ask each other, we'd see each other at the weigh-in. We're like, do you think they just swam in? And it's like, there's no way. Like, I think they were there and they just turn on, and they decide to eat. And, it's a difficult thing to understand. I've never quite understood it, but I think it has something to do with like dominance and the big ones allowing the little ones to eat and just like, laying back. And then when they decide to eat, they take charge and the little ones don't eat at all, and just big ones eat. And it's just like a waiting game.
See, like for me mentally, that is the hardest freaking thing to wrap my head around. Like the capability to understand that, hey, they're going to eat at some point. Like 100%, they're going to eat. If I sit here the whole day, they're going to eat at some point. And then literally taking the decision to sit there on the same spot all day long. And you catch them and get bites. Like that to me, it's so hard for me to make that call. You know what I mean? It's like,
I'm with you.
I feel like how do you even practice for that? That's my thing too. Like, are you taking an area that you know is good or you think might be good and you just sit on it for 5 hours and practice? And if you get bites, you get bites. Like, how do you practice for something like that?
I don't think you can practice for something like that. I think it's just something that just happens. And like, so for me, I'm a fast fisherman. I'm always moving, but there's many times where I fish tournaments and I don't move the boat at all. Like all day, I won't move it. And one of the recent examples I can think of was Lake Gunnersville, April last year. I was fishing, and what it was there was brim beds, and I found this massive brim bed on Gunnersville, and it was like you couldn't even cast across the thing, and the brim were making beds and they're doing figure eights, like thousands of brim. It's like it was like an orchestra, and I would sit there and just watch and wait. And suddenly you'd see the bass start going around the brim bed like they're surrounding them. And I mean tons of bass, like tremendous schools of 2 to 5, 6, 7-pounders. And when they decided to attack, you couldn't reel your bait through there without catching a bass. And so I would sit on this brim bed for hours and just watch them. I could see the water was clear. I could see, there's like 2 feet deep. And suddenly it would come alive and I'd throw my bait in there. And as soon as the bait would hit the water, whoosh, they're thrashing it. Giants too, like 4s and 5s and stuff. And it was as fast as I could catch them. And so something like that, hey, I could sit for 3 or 4 hours without a bite, just knowing that school will come through at some point, and I just got to be ready, But when it's not something like that, like if I can't see things changing, I have a hard time sitting in one spot, like just hoping they come through. I just can't do it. So.
I can't. Like I literally can't do it. Like it just makes me go insane because in my mind, like at least, and this is the problem. I think it's because I'm from New York, where I have fish that are biting all day long. Right. It's not like one grass patch on the entire lake of Lake Harris that goes off that you can catch him. And it's like for us, like you just go 30 yards down the bank and then you can find another grass patch in New York that's the same fish. Like, it's like when you stop biting, okay, I can move now. And then I can let them reload and come back later, where it's like, I mean, the guy who won, Erie Minor, I mean, hats off to him. He caught a mega bag on day one. I mean, it was 108 inches in kayak. It was over 30 pounds.
What?
It's actually like hit the fish big fish he caught was over 24 inches. He said it was only 8.4, but it had like an inverted belly. Like he caught a bag, and that's what he did. He sat on the same spot literally for 2 days straight. And it was like there was guys that were hammers that were probably 30 yards from him that had bad days. And it was it's nuts to me. I'm like, holy crap, that's Florida. Like needle in a haystack.
Yeah, it is. It is needle in a haystack.
He found the perfect cast.
Yeah, that's it. You got to find the perfect cast. That's the key.
So that time of year, I know you said you like to fish fast, covering water, trying to run into them, always be casting, you mentioned in practice, especially when you're going from the back of the creek out trying to figure out where they're at. What baits are you throwing?
Oh, man. So I'm a big Fritz Side 5 fan, I won the Open on that and just loved it ever since. And so I'm going to be throwing Fritz Side a lot. I'm going to Fritz Side, especially if it's pre-spawn. And then, if it's more spawn, I'm going to throw a swim jig a lot. I like to put the max scent meaty chunk on the back of that and hop it around, swim it, and a lot of times you'll get those pre-spawn females and spawning females to come up and eat it. And even if they don't eat it, a lot of times they'll show themselves. And so what that does is it reveals where the bed is. So, when I get a big one to come up and blow up on it, if I don't catch it, I'll troll into where it was and see, is there a bed there? And oftentimes in this time of the year, there is, and then I can actually sight fish that fish. And I throw the Berkeley gilly on the beds and it's thing's irresistible, so that thing's nasty. Yeah.
Nasty.
For bed fishing. Yeah.
Dude, that is one bait that's actually pretty cool, like in regards to how it swims. And like I'm thinking like the brim bed thing you were just talking about. Like that thing would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah. You throw it out there and I mean what's so great about the brim beds is well, most of the time they'll just eat it like when your bait hits the water. But if they don't, you just leave it down there on the bottom, and when the bass come in, they chase all the brim away, and all that's left is your gilly laying there on the bottom, and they just pick it up. Like you don't even have to move it. They just swim over to it and eat it, race off. And brim bed fishing is what's that?
So when a bass wants to eat, it's dumb. They'll eat anything. I'm convinced.
Anything. It's so much fun when they want to eat. Yeah. And when they don't want to eat, it's not that much fun. Yeah.
Right. We have a question here from Anthony Guess asking what size gilly?
All of them are pretty good, honestly. I like the 90. But they're all great. Yeah, I like the little one. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're, with the Florida, especially Florida. But there's a bunch of lakes that fall into this category of they could be in the exact stage we're talking about, where there's pre-spawners, you can catch them, you can even see them. You're talking about them on brim beds. But then there's, fish that are on beds, but there could be water clarity where you can't see them very well.
Right.
There's certainly ways to catch them, but we have a question here from Levi Schneider that says whenever the water clarity isn't ideal for sight fishing, and we've seen like Scott Martin do this on the Harris chain last year using forward-facing sonar. He's asking, do you ever utilize scout or perspective mode on your forward-facing sonar to find bedfish?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I really haven't done that a whole lot. I've seen some beds with it, but I have a hard time fishing for bedding fish with my electronics. So one of the big keys to sight fishing is you have to place that bait exactly on the bed where they're going to eat it. So, you see this big bed, and oftentimes, you'll have a fish that's really aggressive and you just get it near the bed and they eat it. But a lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times you have to hit exactly where their eggs are. And it's like, it's not very big. It's like the size of a couple quarters or something, a couple inches. And so, to answer your question, doing that with electronics, can be really difficult. And there's a hesitation also in the electronics. Like when you're sight fishing, I need to see how that fish is reacting to my bait in real time, exactly what gets its fins to raise up, what pisses it off, makes it want to eat. And with the electronics, there's this hesitation. So I hop my rod, and then a half a second later, you see your bait move. And so it's just been really difficult for me. And maybe as electronics improve, my opinion on that will change. But hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we saw, like I said, you saw like Scott Martin doing it last year, where he could put his forward facing on, at least on the beds he couldn't see, and be able to tell if there's a fish moving around on it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think like at that point, I mean, it's like you find them on forward if you can't see them, and then you're just fishing it visually. You're waiting for your line to move
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, that works a lot, but I've noticed for me that so like let's say I'm fishing structure, like let's say I'm flipping pencil reeds here in Florida or cattails or something, and I'm doing that, I I notice that the fish can hear that sonar. Like I think it's extremely powerful, the forward sonar. You know, it's not like the old 2D pucks in the back of the boat or whatever. Like
Right.
these fish, they hear it. And I don't know. I think it affects the bite. You know, if Scott catches him doing it, you know, that's great. But there's been a lot of times where I've done that and I've seen them and I pitched to them and nothing. Like tons of fish swimming away and I'm not getting bites. So I'm like, I'm just gonna turn it off and just go back to fishing. When it comes to that.
I've made a habit now. Like if I can see bottom, I'm literally turning off my 2D. I keep my mapping on, just like if I need to like mark a waypoint of where they're at, type of deal, like where do I see fish, type of thing. I do the same deal, like turn them off completely if you're shallow.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, everything except 2D, I keep that on a lot. I like to know how deep it is directly below the trolling motor. So if there's a depression, if it goes from 2.2 to 2.4, 2.5, I know that doesn't sound like much, but in Florida, that's a lot. And so I like to know all those little teeny depressions and things like that. So yeah, I'll keep the 2D on, but not forward sonar.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fast. I'm gonna show you this this fish that Ewing caught, his 24 incher.
All right, let's see it.
Let me show you this. Let's see. Let me pull it up. I gotta pull the tab. Here we go. Check that sucker out.
Holy crap!
What a head on that thing.
Yeah,
it's all head, no tail.
Yeah,
it's literally like a stump.
Wow, it looks like a Lake Eustis fish because it's a little bit lighter, or it could be a popka, but I think it's Eustis. It's funny on the Harris chain. Every fish from each lake looks different.
Huh?
None of them are the same. So it's funny like how they all have different colors and patterns and stuff.
That is really intriguing.
I cannot get over that fish's tail to head ratio.
Huge.
So small.
Like it's got like a 3-pounder tail and like a 10-pounder head.
Yeah, I mean, pretty on that fish.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if that's post spawn or if that bass just had a disease or something, but it might have AIDS. Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a guy that's like 6 foot, but his legs are only like 2 feet tall.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Right.
It's a wild fish. That thing's cool.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that like I was talking to him, like asking about like how much that thing weigh. Like I asked him, like, that's got to be 10, right? He's like, yeah, it's only 8.4. I was like, 8.4.
Well, yeah,
look at the head. I can imagine that thing coming up the surface. Like that head would make me like crap myself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would like have a panic attack and pass out before I reeled it in.
Oh, this comment is amazing. So Anthony,
now we know.
That's incredible.
Tony likes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we back on track. We do have a good question here from Matt Boyd. He's asking, what is one of your favorite topwater baits for spraying or spawning bass?
So like one of my favorite topwater is actually a swim jig, and I swim it on top, like not on top, but it's like 1 or 2 inches. Yeah, like where every bite you would see the boil or they'll just blow up on it, because a lot of times they're spawning in the structure, they're in the pads, they're in stuff like that. So it's hard to throw treble hook baits, but if you're on a body of water where there's not a lot of grass, man, just throw a walk-in bait, walk top water. The cane walker is really good. I throw that a lot. If I'm on a place like Clark's Hill next week, I might be throwing that.
I might be, but if you're listening and fishing it, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great bait. But it just depends on what body of water Matt's on there, and go swim jig or walking bait.
That makes sense for sure. Andy, you got anything for Keith here in regards to this time of year?
I had a question, and then I lost it when he showed me that bass. So you might have to give me a minute. Yeah.
No,
I still can't get over the head to tail ratio. I think it was wild.
So, like, Keith, this time of year, I'm curious, selfishly, like, when you have your first wave of spawners come up, especially in Florida, I mean, the next couple full moons, especially when things start getting really hot down here in Florida, I mean, how far into months, but like, how far will into like that first heating trend come in the spring will those fish spawn?
So typically our fish spawn from November until May. Like, so for example, I think on Okeechobee, I think they're going to be spawning into like June. It's Okeechobee's flooded. It's really high. It's way behind any other lake in Florida right now. I think they're just coming to spawn still. Even though the water's warm and things like that, the fish have been spawning on Harris for months now, and on Okeechobee, like, I just didn't see it happening 2 weeks ago. So a lot of that has to do, with water level and things like that. But, typically in Florida, our fish spawn for 6 months of the year. And, it's always funny because when I go to other parts of the nation, people are like, our fish spawn and they're done in a week and that's it. And I'm like, geez, it just blows my mind, that happens in other parts of the nation, because it sure doesn't happen in Florida.
I don't think that's like the truth to it at all. I think people just get so used to fishing the same stuff over and over and over again that they're very repetitive in the way they break down water and target a specific lake, that they're missing 90% of the other fish that are spawning. Like, for instance, up here on Erie, where I'm at, and Bailey's at in Buffalo, our spawn goes from like the second week of May, as soon as the water temp hits 50, all the way to like the second week of July. And they're always in a different area. So that is a question I do have, is down there in Florida, kind of correlated all together. Do the fish spawn in the same exact areas from November to May, or will they kind of disperse and move in different areas around the lake?
Yeah. So our fish spawn in the same exact areas, and not only that, they spawn on the same exact beds, the same bed. And bass will reuse the other bass's beds. And not only that, they kick tilapia off their bed and they take tilapia beds, and that happens all the time. So like you'll be going down the bank and you'll see like 50 tilapia, and you'll think, there's no bass, and then it's like, bam, there's an 8-pounder with 2 tilapias right next to him, and it's a bass, and it's like, holy cow. And you go down a little more, there's another giant, and they're on the big concave tilapia beds, and they'll steal them from the tilapia and run them off. Happens every year. Yeah, it's amazing.
They look like smallmouth beds, the tilapia.
Yeah.
I learned that this past week. I saw one. I went around the corner. It was my first time ever seeing a tilapia on a bed. And it's so funny. I'm on the GoPro. I have my chesty running. I'm like, is that bass glowing? Because they're like pale white. Like they really glow.
Yeah.
You can see him. And I'm like, that's a tilapia. And that was like the first time I learned about that. I was like, this is interesting. And I remember they're like, yeah, bass eat tilapia. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, that thing's bigger than most of the bass I'm seeing.
I don't think you can eat that one.
No.
That's a big tilapia.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Yeah. And then also, Andrew, you mentioned your fish spawn from 50 degrees. So when I was talking about the mid 60s, I'm referring largemouth, obviously there, smallmouth they start spawning much sooner.
Well, I would say it's the same thing for really a largemouth though. Like, a typical year for us up here, ices off our lakes, the end of March, beginning of April, some years, depending on how cold the winter is. And then like 3 weeks later, we'll have fish on beds, because we'll go from like 31-degree highs to like 70-degree highs, 75-degree highs in like 4 weeks.
Well, wow. I mean, to Keith's point though, like the nighttime temps, like we have, it'll be 26 degrees in the morning, but by 10 o'clock, it's 82.
Yeah.
The fish are so confused. But I mean, to Andy's point though, like I've been out there and I've seen like 1 or 2 spawners when it's like 49 to 50 degrees, which is super weird. And then you see a giant wave of them come up. And then you can see some of them that like in some of our lakes, they spawn until like the end of July. It's kind of wild.
They just keep coming.
Crazy.
And that's what I was saying. Like the guy that says they spawn in 1 week, there's no way, because of like, they're trying to create like generational growth on these fish. If they all spawn in that 1 week period, everybody would know it, and the fish would be basically wiped clean of fish. They have
I
to
agree.
spawn at different periods.
Yeah, I think
So,
all fish spawn for a span of months. In Florida, I believe it's the longest for sure because our weather goes up and down so much, and our bodies of water are shallow, so the temperature can change drastically in a matter of days.
mhm.
But up north, like you said, even Erie, I mean, they're spawning for months. It's a while. You can go out and sight fish for a couple months, and in places like St. Lawrence where there's a lot of current, those fish are spawning way later. That water's going to stay a lot cooler than it will on more stagnant body of water.
Well,
So
that's a good point too, because I mean, if you talk about that, like especially smallmouth, as long as they have some sort of light that can reach the bottom, they're going to spawn as deep as they feel like, especially those big
yeah,
girls. And,
yeah.
which that is one of the questions I had for you, especially talking about largemouth, is have you found that those, like a lot of people say with bigger fish, they always spawn deeper? But I mean, I don't know if there's a correlation to that. I think it's just you might catch bigger deeper because they're just less pressured when they're spawning, if that makes any sense. What do you think the
Yeah.
truth is there?
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've heard that, of course, all my life, bigger fish spawn deeper. I don't know. I can't say that that's true. I've seen absolute giants with their backs touching the water. Basically, the time that I referred to earlier when John and I caught like 45 pounds, every one of those fish, its back was touching the water. They were in 1 foot, maybe less. And like one of the fish we caught that day, it was on a tilapia bed. It was a 9 pounder. And this fish, so you know how the tilapia beds, they have the concave to it.
Yeah.
Well, the fish would get on its side and swim over the side of the tilapia bed and then down in it. And I was like, holy cow, and I pitched in there and spooked it and it got on its side and then it swam and it made a big loop and it got on its side again back in the bed. And I pitched on it and caught it. It's like, just blows my mind, that these fish are in no water.
They're not smart.
Honestly,
we give them
though,
way too
think
much
about
credit.
That's honestly
Yeah.
think about it. If you really think about that, as a female, you're mom of the year. You're a genius. You have a board. You basically have a border around
Yeah.
your bed that fish can't get into.
Right. Yeah. You protect them better.
Genius.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. But this was on the St. Johns River. The St. Johns River bass are a breed of bass that there's nothing like in the nation because we have brackish water. So, like, you could be fishing, and I mean, I've seen dolphin in Lake Monroe, porpoises. There's crab traps. There's stingray everywhere. Every year that I sight fish on the St. Johns, I see stingrays. Swim. Oh yeah, they're all over the place. There's tarpon out here. And so our bass have like that little bit of, how saltwater fish are extremely aggressive, sharp teeth, like almost everything can kill you, it seems like. So these bass are like, they're a different breed. They're some of the most aggressive bass I've ever seen. So, when you see fish spawning with their backs touching the water, it's like, it's a St. Johns River bass, They do crazy stuff here. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I heard we're gonna start wrapping things up here in a second, but I've heard that St. John's took a good beating from the hurricane.
It did. Yeah. I mean, we had our St. Johns River was at a 500-year high from this hurricane. The water was so high. A lot of the pencil reeds that the fish spawn in are just gone. It was so high, it wiped them out. A lot of pads are gone. I'm pretty sure almost all the eelgrass in Lake George is gone. Again, yeah, and it sucks because about 10 years ago, all of George was full of eelgrass, and I mean the lake was on fire. It was some of the best fishing you could fish, for largemouth. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if the fish die. I don't know what happens when all that vegetation goes away, but maybe we can get the state to rally some funding or something and bring it back, because in my opinion, the St. John's is one of the best largemouth fisheries that there is when it's good,
Right.
But in terms of size and things like that, of the fish, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll come back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, dude, so you mentioned you got Clarks Hill coming up. I mean, your season's about to kick in full swing. You already got one event under your belt. But what are you looking forward to this year, man?
Man, I have got the NPFL. I'm going to be fishing. Our first event's on Lake Pickwick here mid-March. And then the second event for MLF is next week on Clarks Hill. And I'm just excited, to be fishing everything. I'm really looking forward to, so NPFL goes back to Wright Patman. And that's where I won that tournament 2 years ago in the same month in April. And so, I get to hopefully defend that title, but who knows? I'm looking forward to Saginaw Bay. Saginaw Bay is one of my new favorite fisheries. It is truly amazing.
Numbers wise or size?
A little more numbers wise, but the size isn't bad either. It's not like if you go out and you smallmouth fish, a good day, 23 to 24, that's a great bag. That's not the kind of numbers you're going to see at other smallmouth fisheries that can push 30. But it's just, it's funny because a lot of times when you're on a really good smallmouth fishery where you have potential 30-pound bags, the largemouth fishing isn't always the best. Saginaw Bay is not like that. You can catch 20 pounds of smallmouth and you can go catch 20 pounds of largemouth all in the same day and get a tremendous amount of bites, like 50 plus bites a day. So I was really impressed. Went there for the first time last summer. Excited to go back there. But just looking forward to the year. Hoping to maybe win one.
Man.
Keep the pedal down.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
You gonna be at Classic in Redcrest?
I'm not sure yet which one I'm going to, but yeah, I should be at one of them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, Andy, you got anything left for Keith here?
No, I just want to say safe travels and good luck at your upcoming tournament on Clark's Hill and go get a trophy. That'd be fun to see.
Yeah, thanks,
you won there
man.
before, so hopefully you can do it again.
I hope so too. I hope you're right. So fingers crossed. Yeah.
Dude, I got one more question for you before we let you go.
Yeah.
And I have an idea of what you're gonna say. I don't know if you'll say it though, but
Okay.
if you couldn't fish anymore, you had to choose a different career path. What are you gonna pick?
I would have been a professional golfer.
Golfer. Okay.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
So well, funny thing is so like I was a UPS driver years back and all the guys golf, so I got into it and I was terrible, like anybody would be, and when you first start. And I stuck with it, and turns out like I've actually gotten pretty good at golf. And in the off season, I golf, a fair bit, and gotten pretty good. I'm shooting in the 70s, and I can like smoke a ball, and I can.
What are you
hit
driving?
shots.
Like 3? Are you driving 325?
No. Well, so here's the funny thing. So with my driver, I play a 2004 R7. It's an old driver. It's got a smooth face, and it's very difficult to square the ball and to compress it. And so it makes me a better driver. And I carry that about 275, which I think is a pretty good drive. And
absolutely.
when I hit a new driver, I got a buddy that's got a new Stealth, and I hit it at the range the other day. I carry that about 290, and I'm just thrilled with it. But I just learned how to like actually swing and have the proper swing path and things like that. And it's actually not as hard as it seems when you first start playing. But
it's all muscle memory, right? The same thing
Yeah.
with skipping a wacky worm underneath the dock. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with muscle memory.
Well, what really blows my mind about golf is I've noticed that as I get better with my swing mechanics with golf and striking the ball and hitting the center of the face, I'm better with my casting too. It's improving. Yeah, it truly is hand-eye coordination to strike a ball exactly how you're supposed to. And with casting, like I'm hitting my spots. And we all know the best fishermen that there are in history are basically the best casters of all time. They can hit spots that are so tiny, and then also get your bait to enter the water silently, so the fish don't hear it and things like that. And so golf's helped improve my casting technique and stuff, and which has led me to catching more fish. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, man. We got Landon Tucker, your good buddy, who we've had on the show before, commenting saying, dude is a stud golfer. And he also told me, he texted me here saying that your new nickname is KFC.
Oh gosh, yeah. I like chicken. What can I say? Yeah, they have good biscuits. Yeah,
Keith Carson.
Yeah,
yeah. I love it. That's a good point. Not to go on a whole tangent, but back when I was playing lacrosse, I noticed the same thing too. Like I had lacrosse practice, I'd go fishing the next day. Like things were just fluid. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's a great point.
Yeah, you got this fluid to you, and then another thing to golf is you have to have a perfect tempo. Like I don't just go out and just hit the ball as hard as I can. If I go out and swing as hard as I can, I don't hit the center of the face, and I'll hit my driver 240 yards. And if I find that perfect tempo, there's a perfect, it's just this feeling of rhythm. And when I find that and I strike the ball well, I carry that into fishing. Fishing is also, you have to have a rhythm. There's a feeling to how the day progresses and how you're casting and hitting your mark and things like that. And when I have those kinds of days, they're typically the day goes well and I catch the size of fish that I'm going after.
That's a good
So,
point.
Yeah.
You can be going along the bank, skipping, overhanging trees, and you got the rhythm's going like you're saying, and it's going perfect. And that gust of wind comes up, pushes a little faster, and then that's when you bird's nest.
Yeah, exactly.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Or boat wakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he tries to skip docks when there's 3-foot of boat wakes coming through, and he wonders why
You can't skip unless it's perfect glass. Like, and I mean, if there's a 2-inch ripple, unless the docks are like high above the water or whatever it is that you're skipping. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, it's calm enough. It's like a 3 to 5 mile an hour wind. And I go skipping docks and my bait's like hits a little ripple and it's way up above the dock. And of course it's a wacky rig open hook and a
it's
on the
got
dock,
like wires running all
deep.
down the dock. You got that owl swinging its arms and it's all
Oh yeah.
It's always
like,
that
what was
dock.
I thinking?
Always.
Yeah, always.
ring it off the pontoon and let the whole neighborhood know that there's somebody.
That's just a fish alarm. They're gonna come eat it at that point.
Oh yeah.
Dinner bell. Ringing the dinner bell. Come on.
That's right. Well, Keith, man, dude, appreciate you taking the time out tonight. It's good catching up with you. And man, let us know which one you're going to be at, Red Crest or Classic, and we'll have to go grab a brew.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Sounds good to me. I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, folks, Keith's Instagram, social, all that jazz is down below. If you guys aren't following him yet, highly encourage you to. And buddy, we'll be in touch. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Sounds
See you,
good.
man.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.
See you, Keith. Dude, you want to talk about, like, on the topic of just fishing simple? That's a guy that fishes simple, and it works. It freaking works for him. But the whole story of like him and Cox, Abu, I think it was Abu or Berkeley, or maybe it was both. I can't remember. Regardless, the brands did a cool story on them last year of like their upbringing. One of these times we'll have to talk about how they started a fire with while they were fishing. It was actually pretty interesting. But big thank you to Keith for taking time to come out tonight. That was a lot of fun, especially talking about the spring, because the spring can be a lot of fun. I mean, as some of the people that we know call it KVD season, they like to take jokes at this time of year, which is all fine. I mean, like this time of year, you catch a lot of fish, and you can run into some big ones too.
But you can also zero very easily if you're not around them.
For sure. Or you can literally be catching 15 pounds 10 times over and wonder why you're not catching a big one at all. Whereas there's certain things that it's not always just easy. You're not going to go out there and catch a giant every single time of the year just because it's the spring. There are some different things you have to take into account because those big girls, they act different than the rest of the crowd. So that was cool. Keith dropped some really good knowledge on there for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're watching or if you're listening to this at a later date, and obviously we're live at the moment, please leave us a rating and review. That really helps us out big time. And of course, if you are watching this, whether on Facebook or YouTube, give it a thumbs up. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. We really appreciate it. And guys, I'm rocking a Serious Angler t-shirt right now. If you guys want some Serious Angler merch, Lure Lab, Business of the Bass Boat, and we have some new fun Serious Dangler shirts coming out here soon. We do have our website up, SeriousAnglerNetwork.com. It's down below if you guys want any merch. That also is another way to support the show if you'd like. But tonight was a lot of fun.
Agreed. I like these episodes, especially talking about big fish. It's my favorite. So
you like every episode then?
Yes.
You're like, I like episodes like this. The episodes where we have guests? What do you mean?
No, talking about like how to specifically target big fish and like certain times of year. Because I feel like everyone has generally a different answer, but it all comes down to like the same details, like the minute details of like where they find them and how they find them and how they target it. And it's kind of cool to see the story of how each individual targets the bigger fish and their approach, which I generally enjoy. Oh, absolutely. Like that fish is weird. It's like impregnated in my brain.
Chub over that fish.
It's just wild. Yeah, I remember the one fish we caught a couple years ago, one of the first times we went and fished your favorite lake, and it was like est. Remember that weird largemouth?
Yeah, it was deformed, man.
Yeah. Huge head on it. The tail on it was like this big, and it was like an S. It looked like a
We caught
snake.
some abnormal fish that day. Like I had a fish that was what? It was 18 inches and like 18 inches around, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those are just finger lake fish in general, though. They're not very. They just eat and they get very tall and wide and short and stubby. And
yeah, Honeyway Lake. That's where they're at.
Yeah. Honeyway can eat like all those lakes.
That's right. Yeah. Well, buddy, what's coming up for you? What do you got in the docket?
For the Lure Lab, I think we're gonna have a mag draft show this Saturday, so that'll be a good one. We have Megabass guy Josh Bragg is going to come on and talk about the mag draft. It is his favorite technique, and we're going to be breaking down the difference between the OG mag draft and the freestyle, and when and where to throw each one in your setup for it. So, because there's some big differences between the two, I feel like, and when and where to throw them. So Josh is going to break that down for us.
Yeah. I should have taken that adjustment to go into the standard this past week versus the freestyle version.
Yeah, and I think like a big thing too is like the rod choice on what you throw them on, because from the treble hook to a single hook, there's a big difference on how you have to actually hook the fish. So that will be a really interesting one. I look forward to it.
It'll be very interesting indeed. If you guys have not checked out the Lure Lab, there's links to that down below. But dude, in probably like a month ish, Erie. I mean, Erie's open right now, isn't it?
Oh, if I had my boat, I could probably get out there and catch smallmouth right now. I'm trying to decide if I want to get the boat before we go to Red Crest and take it in, or if I want to wait till we get back, because I really can't bring it home until after we move. So that's my dilemma, because it'll be in the way of moving. So,
well, I know a great friend that'll look after it for you.
Yeah, where am I going to leave it in your driveway at the apartment complex?
Yeah, we'll just take up a couple spaces. There's no big. Keep it on lock for you. Don't you worry.
Yeah, so I actually have to call Morgan Marine and see when I can get it in there. But I actually have to fix my boat cover first, because it's a ratchet strap system. And when I was in the boat a couple weeks ago, I forgot to clamp down the one side of the ratchet strap, and I pulled the strap like halfway through the cover, so I gotta basically get the strap back out.
So how do you do that?
I'm gonna have to figure it out.
Because I can't. It's like when you get your like the string in your hoodie.
Yeah, big old pain in the ass, but we'll figure it out.
What? No, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, so
that is one task, my friend, that I will not help you with.
Oh, come on. No, I have a couple ideas on how I'm going to do it, but we'll see it. That's going to be something that I'm going to have to do. I went and got the boat cover. It is at my house. I just haven't had a chance to sit down and try to figure it out, because it's a traveling boat cover. So I want to make sure it's on there when it's sitting outside at whatever marina I take it to, so it doesn't get like snowed on if I take it at the end of February or beginning of March. So
for sure,
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, if you guys are looking to get on some big old Lake Erie smallmouth, or even some Finger Lake fish this spring, Andy's contact information, either you can reach out to him on social, but his email and such is down below as well in the show notes. And guys, everything that we talked about bait wise tonight, like he talked about the gilly, he talked about oh gosh, the Fritz side. You talked about several different baits tonight.
The Drift Walker too, I think, right? Is that a bait from Berkeley? Drift Walker?
Drift Walker is that skinnier topwater walking bait. All that stuff's available on Omnia Fishing. So if you guys want to go and get some tackle, even if it's not the stuff that we talked about tonight, if you haven't ordered with us on Omnia, we do have a code, first time order code called Serious First, all caps, for 15% off. Then you can use unlimited times after that. You can use code Serious 10 for 10% off. That's all down below in the show notes. Every single show has, whether it's YouTube or MP3, has all of our discount codes to our partners, as well as websites to partners that we don't have discount codes for, that you guys can go check out and take advantage of, as well as some different social medias. As this series, Angler Podcast Network, grows, we might be adding a show later this year, maybe May, June timeframe. As it continues to grow, all of our shows are always linked below, so you guys can check out everything else that the network is able to provide. But Andy, tonight was a lot of fun. I think we call it, man.
Yeah. And we'll see everyone on Friday.
Heck yeah. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you next time.